24th, Christmas Eve, 2023. Some of you might recognize the 69 Firebird. I've had a few of these events with Tom Bailey there, Sick Week, Sick Summer, a couple of the other drag racing events around the country. Anyhow, the event that I'm talking about is the ones where we tow a trailer around behind the car, or maybe some of you with bigger balls go without a trailer. Good for you. Anyhow, last year I did Sick Week in February. Great event. Did Sick Summer back in June. Another great event put on by Tom Bailey with the Sick crew. If any of you saw it, remember I did that big wheelie back there in June, Sick Summer, and I tore the front end of the car up a little bit, broke some of the suspension parts. I blew out the right front, the coil over. That thing was destroyed. So I want to add some bump stops. I want to add some travel limiters, some adjustable travel limiters, so that we can dial in that front end a little bit more. You know, here we go. Let's dig into it. I'll show you something first I'm going to do. I'm going to drop all the suspension out. We're going to see where the travel is, the highs, the lows. And I'm going to show you a few things that can be fixed along the way with those, the coilover install. Definitely depends on the lower control arm that you have. That can move the shock in or out or front or back, depending on the way that lower control arm is built. I have some cheapy aftermarket lower control arms. They're really heavy duty. They're very heavy themselves. They're probably hurting me more than helping me, but they're there and it seems to work. The car rides nice. I don't feel like changing too much, so let's get to it. Arm swung out of the way, so I want to leave everything else hanging on the upper. I think we're going to start with the upper travel limiter up in here and figure out what we're going to make. We might make a plate in here. We'll figure something out. Make this adjustable travel limiter. First thing we're going to do is I got a piece of wood in here. It's just a 2x4, nothing special, right? Just holding that control arm up out of my way. And I got a ratchet strap just holding this spindle and everything off this side. I don't want to have to take it on and off a million times to test fit everything, so I'm just getting it out of my way. I can easily get in here and work and cut and trim and do everything else I have to do. Weld, fabricate everything, and that way everything's there, the weight's there. Here we go, one down. Alright, so I think you guys know I already have, these are all done. This is the pedestal that I'm making, adjustable stand for the bump stop. This is going to go up in here, something like this, down into the frame. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to drill a hole in the frame so that threaded portion of that bolt, or that stand I made, that stud can stick through it. I'll show you where we do that right here. Right. So I've got the holes drilled. I stepped them up bigger and bigger and bigger. The largest drill bit that I have, solid drill bit, is 5/8 inch. So that's not enough. I'm going to be welding this nut on the frame. So the thing I don't want to do is I don't want this to just be like welded like this, all sloppy with a a big chunk of weld underneath this back edge. So I'm going to actually grind the frame and recess this nut so that when it sits down where I want it to sit, this edge, this outer edge is going to touch this mount, and the inside will be recessed nice and neat. So. Drop this in and see if everything lines up the way I want it to. Got a little gap under the front here that I'm not worried about, but the 1/4 inch I had before was pretty large. Look at that. Right on the money. I mean, that just dropped right in there. So that's what we want. I'm splitting the difference there. This arm is coming down right in the center. Again, once the alignment is changed, if it's changed at any point, it's gonna completely set this in or out, more or less, if anything has to be changed. Right now, the alignment's really close to where it needs to be. So, just putting it on the center is a good starting point. And then that's why I put this extra large pad, because it'll be able to come out some and in some. It'll still work just fine. I don't really believe that there is a tremendous amount of force put down on this. I am going to be limiting the shock travel, so it's not like it's slamming up real abruptly. It's going to be hitting hard, but it's going to still have that shock absorption on the dampening on the extension. So will it be hitting this hard? Yes. Is this probably overkill? I would say definitely. We got 2 tacks on there. I feel like we need one more in the back, just so it doesn't start shifting around when I start getting hot, So make a minor adjustment here and keep going. Still what I'm working on. You always want to keep your ground as close to what you're welding as possible. Never ground it to a ball joint or a wheel bearing or the engine block or anything like that. That arc can actually go through your bearings, whether it's in the engine, the wheel bearing. If you were to ground that to a wheel stud or something like that, you can actually put score marks or burn marks in your bearings, and then you're going to wonder why your bearing went bad in 20,000 miles. It should have lasted 100,000, 150,000. So just keep that in mind. Anything that moves, anything, you don't want that weld transferring through anything that could possibly have an arc. Just like I said, keep it as close as possible. Make sure you have a nice clean spot for that ground to attach to. Here we go. We're back over here. Just want to show you something I mentioned earlier. There was this sliver of the frame that was sticking out on this original bump stop. Well, I cut this tab off because this control arm on the inside got really close, and like I had said, that other side had hung up before. So I trimmed that off, and then this is just a quick piece I made out of a piece of 1/8 inch. This is just going to get welded up in here like this to fill that spot. We'll grind it down and make it look almost like factory. Never know anything was done there. And there it is. Look at that little cap I put on there, all done. Geez, I don't even know if you would really recognize that was touched or not. So this is a little filler in here. This frame had a lot of rust pits in it, so it was really just under the control arm here to here. It was all kind of just pitted and looked like crap, so I got to straighten that back out. We'll put a little more filler in there, spray some epoxy primer on this thing, and I'm pretty sure that we can call this stop or limiter done on the driver's side. Next thing I'm going to do is show you guys up inside here the hole that I'm talking about that needs to be enlarged for your coilover to fit properly. Without doing that, you definitely stand a chance of destroying a coilover. Alright, so here's that hole I've been talking about. You see that hole farther up in there, the smaller hole? That's what your shock absorber or your ends up being your coilover shock ends up going through with a bushing. This hole here, this one here, the sloppy cut hole, that's where the top of your shock absorber ends up making contact. It may never make contact. This side here, the driver's side, never contact, never touch, there's not a scratch on it. The passenger side, for whatever the reason may be, it hits. All I could say is get up in there, clearance that thing. I am going to I'm going to make a mark on it, and I'm going to take a good bit off of it and try to give more clearance in case there's changes down the road, something moves, bushing goes bad. All right, as you can see, that's I'm going to be taking about a 1/2 inch out all the way around that ring there. Again, because of the spring pocket, you can't do that much over here, but I am definitely going to take some of this out here, clean it up a little bit. It's folded over pretty far anyway, so I feel like it's more out of the way than the other side than this side here. So there it is. I ground that out. I think it took me less than 10 minutes for sure. It was real easy. It's not that thick of material. I think it's only 1/8 inch. That's all you got to do. All right, so I had a little change of plans. I initially said I was going to just drill a hole into here, thread it, but then I started thinking, you know, this bushing here, this bumper I got, it's hanging over the edges. So if this control arm was to move in or out, let's say, and get to one side of this bushing, I think it could roll it over the sides and not be as effective. So what I did is I went to the drill press or the mill again, and I got some, this is a nice thick piece of quarter. So I'm going to actually weld this onto the frame, and then once it's welded in place, I'm going to drill and tap all the way through. So it's going to be tapped through both pieces, and then I'll have a nice big flat mounting pad that this can thread right into, being that these bushings for energy suspension come with a nice little 3/8 stud sticking out of them. So there's multiple different sizes I can buy. Like, I didn't buy this for a car, a specific vehicle. I just went on their website and I picked what I needed. So this one here, whoop, trying to get away from me there. This one here is what's the part number on this thing? 6052. Who knows what that's actually for, but it's gonna go there. So here we are. The plate's all welded up. I've got the hole all drilled and tapped. It's going through the 2 layers now. Let's thread the bushing in. I am very happy with the way this turned out. Check that out. Bushing threads on. I mean, that turned out 100% like I wanted it to. Obviously, I got to clean it up a little bit and hit it with the DA and get some paint on there. Check this out. Control arm just comes perfectly right up into position. Bam. It's going to hit like factory. Better than factory, in my opinion. A polyurethane bushing, I can change it. It's threaded. I can change the height. I can put a shorter one. I could put a taller one. At least it gives me options. I can put washers under there if I need to. You know, I think this is great. This is a great little setup. Anybody can make this at home. So here are the 2 new Viking Warrior double adjustable front shocks that make up the coilover kit. It's really just a shock absorber with a threaded body with the adjustable ride height here for the springs. The spring just simply sits down on here like this, goes up in the stock pocket. Again, this is for the F body and the X body. Same thing with the Chevelles. Although I haven't done a Chevelle, it's the same setup. It's got the double adjustable, one thumb screw for rebound, one thumb screw for compression. These shocks I ordered, they have the spherical joint on the lower mount here. You can also get them with a bushing. The ones that I had ordered as replacement, they're at 6 Summer. I could only get with the rubber bushing in it, which was fine because the 67 Camaro I'm doing, that's probably never going to see the drag strip. It's really just going to be a street car that we're going to set up for comfort, and I'll have the adjustability of the ride height with the spanner nuts here. So that's it there with the Vikings. You can also, so I opted for the Torrington bearing on the lower spring pad here, so that everything turns a little bit easier. I kind of feel like when they get bound up with dirt and sand and things, they might not even be all that necessary. They might bind up and do nothing, but I think it's a good start, and that's where we're going to go with it. So here we go. It's time to reassemble the front end of the car. Everything's been fabbed up, primed, painted, rust-proofed, and we're ready to get it all back together, and I'll show you how it's done. Well, this is the good part. Everything else is done. Remember to grease your ball joints, grease your tie rod ends, grease anything that needs to be greased before you put your tire up in the way. Double check your clearance on everything. Make sure everything's been tightened, cotter pins are all in. Now you can finally put your wheel on and get this baby back down on the ground and take it for a ride.